Mr. Shah Mahmood Qureshi, Foreign Minister of Pakistan. Welcome onto our KT One-on-One as we talk about your trip out here in the United Arab Emirates. But I'd like to start off firstly with your stint as Foreign Minister. This is your second one, and the Naya Pakistan branding is out there. What would you identify as the success story in the 2 years as the Foreign Minister for Pakistan for the second term?
I think we have successfully been able to defeat India's design to diplomatically isolate Pakistan. They had organized a smear campaign against Pakistan through EU Disinfo Lab, and I think we have succeeded in exposing them.
There's been a lot of an India-centric focus that you've seen as well, especially with your last time that we were out here. It was a very fiery press conference, and then there was a bit of a suggestion that there could potentially be a strike. But now things are slightly changing. We see that the Indian Foreign Minister is also arriving in Abu Dhabi. We see and hear that the United Arab Emirates wants to play a role in forging the ties between the two countries. What's the agenda this time around?
I'm also here to discuss the evolving regional situation. You see developments taking place in Afghanistan. You are hearing of a peace conference being organized in Turkey, Istanbul. So it might give me a good opportunity to hear his point of view. UAE obviously has a large Pakistani presence. They have a large Indian presence. They do recognize that Indians and Pakistanis both have contributed to the development of UAE, and they have good relations with both. And we don't grudge that. We don't grudge that. So we are comfortable with the role they can play. We have no issue, but it has to be, in my view, primarily bilateral. And today we would want to move ahead. But in order to get there, India, that was responsible for officiating the climate, will have to create that conducive, enabling environment for the dialogue to take place. And that can only happen if life in Jammu and Kashmir improves.
What's holding the two states back at the moment? Because, from their perspective is, stop activities and stop being focused too much on Kashmir. The Pakistani side of the argument would be is that we want a dialogue. But what's holding these two back? International community says it's a bilateral situation. You're internationalizing it, but there's not limited gain.
It is not a bilateral issue. It is an internationally recognized issue. There are umpteen Security Council resolutions on the Kashmir dispute. India and Pakistan are obliged to do certain things. But if we want a lasting peace in South Asia, then you cannot wish away the Kashmir dispute. It still have to be discussed, and a resolution will have to be found according to the wishes of the Kashmiri people.
So how do we reach that then? Do you think your trip to the United Arab Emirates could foster the environment for that dialogue that we're expecting to happen?
No, I'm here for a bilateral visit. I'm not here for a India-specific agenda. My agenda is UAE-Pakistan, not India-Pakistan. And we welcome, third-party facilitation. We have no issues with that. Pakistan has no issues with that. But no matter what friends say, friends like UAE say, the initiative has to be indigenous. Pakistan would appreciate anyone and everyone, including UAE, playing a role, a positive role, a constructive role.
So where do you see the roadmap going? Given the sentiments 2 years ago, they were quite hostile. Do you think this is now progressing towards an easy?
I think there are some positive developments that I would like to recognize. For example, the recent recommitment to the 2003 ceasefire understanding. is a good development. Kashmiris on both sides of the line of control was suffering on account of, unprovoked firing across the LOC. That, in my view, is a positive development. The fact that the Prime Minister of India sent messages to the Prime Minister of Pakistan on our National Day, which is the 23rd of March, I see it as a positive development. The fact that I've seen a change in rhetoric, toned down rhetoric, is a positive development. The fact that India wants to see, a peaceful Afghanistan, a peaceful region. Obviously, they recognize that it won't happen if there is two important players within the region not seeing eye to eye. So there is an overall support for a forward movement.
So let's continue about the fact of your bilateral relations. You do credit the remittances that are going from the United Arab Emirates, the overseas Pakistani's contribution. So far, over the last few months, we've seen that the visas issue has been there for a lot of young, aspiring job seekers to come here, or even young tourists to be arriving here. Is that going to be talked upon as your point of view being put forward?
Certainly. I discussed the visa issue with the Foreign Minister when I was there last time. And I must admit, since my last discussion, which took place in December 2020, there has been improvement. Families are being allowed in, and there have been certain concessions that have been made. But work visas are still challenging, especially for the younger lot. And hopefully, in my meeting with him tomorrow, we will talk about it.
Moving on into your diplomacy and the situation at the moment, the geopolitical scenario. In September, there will be a withdrawal of the troops. Joe Biden, the administration, has said that it'll move the American troops away from Afghanistan. You have your neighbor who says do more in Kashmir, then you'll have another Western or the Western power saying do more in Afghanistan. Where does that place Pakistan now, and how do you view the situation?
First of all, I think you've got to recognize that the international community today is recognizing what Pakistan has done for moving the peace process forward. Pakistan played a very constructive, positive role, facilitating role in that, and there is international recognition and appreciation for that. We want to take it forward. We want to take it to its logical conclusion, which is peace. Pakistan desires a peaceful, stable, unified, independent, democratic Afghanistan. But the process has to be taken forward by Afghans. It's their country. They have to decide how to reconcile. They have to decide what kind of a political dispensation they want.
I'd like to conclude our discussion as well by talking about this vision of New Pakistan, and under your position as a foreign minister and being a very key figure of the government, to what extent are you satisfied with the direction that the country is in, and what more needs to be done, and what's your legacy?
Well, a lot needs to be done. Yeah. Believe you me, when you are challenging the status quo, it's never easy. Here, we are trying to advocate a new way of doing things. It's challenging. We face difficulties. We have obstacles at every level. We are fighting them. But I am convinced that we will succeed, because that is what Pakistan needs. And that is what the youth of Pakistan, which is 60% of our population, is desiring for.
Well, Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi, thank you for joining us, and it was a pleasure speaking to you, and all the very best with your vision for the new Pakistan.
Thank you.